Everyone from Chicago. It's Thursday, April 23rd, and this is CB3 Live. I'm your host, Charles Brown, Portfolio Manager with CB3 Financial Group. This is episode 7, and we are so pleased that you've chosen to join us tonight. Not just me, but to join us tonight. And that's the group of people that are watching these videos now in the 7th episode that have decided they're not going to let COVID-19 ruin their day. We're going to talk about all kinds of things tonight, so as I always do, I'm going to wait for just a couple minutes to let people sign in. Would you please sign in and say hi so I know you're here? I'm going to go ahead and put up the first poll question. It's one that I've used before. What is your greatest anxiety? What's your greatest anxiety? Concern for my health? Concern for America's health? Concern for job loss? Or concern for my portfolio? Concern for my health, concern for America's health, concern for job loss, concern for my portfolio. Just answer it whenever you can, and we'll wait for everybody to sign in, and then we'll keep going here. I want to remind you, as I've started every one of these episodes, with this: adversity is inevitable, but misery is a choice. Adversity is inevitable, but misery is a choice, and we choose at CB3 Live not to be miserable. I'm not going to tell you all the bad things that are happening right now because you can see those anywhere you want. I'm going to tell you the good things that I'm seeing and the turnaround and the move back towards prosperity that really excites me about what's happening in America right now. So tonight's theme is America must get back to work. And I realize there might be some controversy here because there are some people who are very concerned, rightly so, that we might be going back to work too soon and might be causing some problems with that. Hello, Tom from Wisconsin. Glad to have you with us. So, what do we have on this first survey? Wow, 100% concerns for Americans' health. That is great that you guys are all altruistic. So there are the results of this first poll. And now I'm going to show you the second one, okay? The second one, what is COVID-19's greatest harm, okay? My own health, America's economy, political acrimony, or personal financial harm. A little bit different than the first one. Again, we're waiting for people to sign in. Hey, Jimmy from California, glad you're here. Good to see you. So go ahead and answer the polls, guys. What is COVID-19's greatest harm? I had a client this week while we're waiting for people to sign in and answer these polls. He said, who knew, CB3, that a diversified portfolio now includes toilet paper and hand sanitizer? I thought that was pretty crazy. Yeah, all right. So we've got 80% on America's economy, 1 political acrimony. Yeah, and we're going to talk about political acrimony tonight. Personal financial harm at 17%. Leave it open for another few seconds. And hey, Andre from New York, upstate New York, glad to have you with us. Glad to have you with us. And Jimmy, I think this is your first time from California. Thanks for being online. So right now we've got 71% at America's economy, 14% at political acrimony, and 14% at personal financial harm. These are the results. So let's go ahead and get started. Hey, Alice. As you guys know, this is the 7th one, and each time we've done the 4 topics that I'm going to give you tonight. Corona America, the U.S. economy, CB3 investments, and new trade ideas. So really the last 2 are similar. One is current investments and the other are new ideas we're thinking about. So as I said earlier, there are plenty of places you can go on TV and the internet to get bad news. I'm going to tell you the good news. We are seeing 30,000 new cases a day from the rest of the U.S. and 15,000 from New York City. So that's a pretty dramatic change. So for those people that live in different states, let's say there's somebody out in Wyoming that is wondering why they can't get their business open when they only have 6 deaths out in Wyoming and they've got 8 deaths from coyote bitings and 6 deaths from COVID-19. It's just a very different situation. We have a disparity that the government officials are trying to address right now, but we are going to get this country reopened. The Food and Drug Administration has approved the first in-home COVID-19 test. This is from LabCorp. It's called Pixel, and it allows you to do a home test in 5 to 7 minutes. Now, here's the thing. You can test on a Monday, go out and socialize, and come back, even if you haven't touched anybody, and could have the virus again. This isn't like the AIDS epidemic, where if you don't practice infectious behavior, and we all know what those are, you're not going to get AIDS. It's not going to happen. But that's not the case with this virus. So it's important that these in-home test kits are available, because during this pandemic and even in the immediate aftermath, we may be testing multiple times a week, especially if it's readily available and inexpensive. Now, Gilead, and this is a company we're going to talk about in Section 3, actually Section 4, has a test that was just taken, was done over the weekend, and that's why the market spiked up on Monday at the University of Chicago on their remdesivir, and it looked like it was going to produce some good results. In fact, one RDV, or residential nurse, claimed this could be the magic bullet down at the University of Chicago. Well, at about 12:15 Chicago time today, the market took a huge drop because it looked like some of those test results were not accurate. And WHO, which is the World Health Organization, said that Gilead's announcement Sunday was premature. Well, then Gilead came back and said, no, it's not at all. You didn't test it according to the parameters that we said that it was valid on. So this is a very evolving topic, as you know. But again, looking at the good news here, we have several major American corporations working on solutions that are going to be good for society. One of them has taken place at Stanford's Medical Center. This is Stanford University. Even though they don't have an approved treatment, they are running tests, putting their heads together, as they say in this quote, to use clinical trials of remdesivir in ways that the University of Chicago didn't. So they're testing people who have pre-existing conditions and seeing how the drug applies in those cases. So I'm excited to see this is so much further than we were even last week, and certainly when we began this 7 weeks ago. So we're seeing these kinds of positive results that will bring more positive news as I keep coming to you every Thursday. San Francisco Chronicle had an article that I just saw this morning. 2 drugs are being tested. They're not being announced as to what they are right now, but there are 2 drugs in San Francisco, which is a pretty hard-hit area, although in general California is far less hit than New York. But these 2 drugs are in testing in San Francisco. I hope to have more news on that next week. That being the case, and here comes where the controversy is, there is a professor, Yatsik Ben Israel, at the Tel Aviv University, who has plotted the cases of this infection, the coronavirus infection, in the U.S., the UK, Sweden, Italy, Israel, Spain, and Germany. And his results are showing that the procedures that they used, or the methodology for crowd control in Sweden, which was basically to not have anything close to the social distancing requirements we've had here in the States, that the outcome or the results are not that much different. And I've got a study here in just a little bit where you can see that the state of Michigan and the country of Sweden have about the same GDP, about the same geographic size, about the same population, a little over 10 million, and they have about the same number of cases. It's just that Sweden hadn't shut down the whole economy, and Detroit, and certainly Michigan in general, has a very arduous, I would say. I know we have Michigan people online tonight as well, but they're having a tough time up there. I mean, they got a governor that doesn't even want them buying plants for their yard. So let me just say hi. I got Jimmy here. Good. Deb Billis. Hey, Deb from South Florida, my hometown. So here's another organization from Global Solutions writing a letter to the president saying, you need to understand that we do global economic monitoring. We've been a counsel to the White House under 5 presidents, and our computer model has never forecast any major economic trend incorrectly. And it is our position that if we don't go back to work in America, this is not me, this is this entity in Wilmington, Delaware, we will be put in the throes of a depression that could take 12 to 13 years to exit. So this crisis that we're facing is not so much the disease like it was when we first started doing this on March 12th. The crisis we're facing now is, what's the timetable for getting back to work and getting this country rolling again? I said earlier about the death toll. So COVID-19 death rate in Sweden at over 1,000 of the population is about 10.2 million people, and their death rate is actually lower than other European countries and similar to that of Michigan. All right, and we just use that because they have a lot of similarities. So is social distancing making that much of a difference? Some studies are saying that this virus is so contagious that social distancing doesn't even make that much of a difference. And the wearing of masks is not even so much to protect yourself, but to protect others from you. So if everyone wears masks, the person across from you is protecting you with their mask, and you're protecting them with your mask. I don't know which of these is the true story yet, but it's an evolving story. And again, that's why I've committed to doing this every Thursday as this continues to be released, these news tidbits here. I heard Mike Pence today, Vice President Pence, state on Rush Limbaugh that the United States has enough testing in place. One of the big questions has been, we don't have enough tests. Well, he's stating de facto, we have enough tests for all 50 states to open in phase one. Now, when we went to air last week, I had to read from my screen over here because the White House had just published their tentative guides. So now, a week later, it's a little firmer. The qualification is that you have to have 14 days of consistently lower COVID-19 cases in that particular area. And the way that the government has decided to handle this is on a county-by-county basis, handled and authorized by a governor-by-governor basis. Make sense? We don't just look at the whole U.S. and say, open up, open down. We look at the individual counties. 25% of the counties in the United States have no COVID cases. 1 out of 4, no COVID cases. Okay? So that's what Mike Pence said. And I'm now reading from the actual regulation that the White House has published. If there is a downward trajectory of documented cases within a 14-day period, or a downward trajectory of positive tests as a percentage of the total tests, and you can read this online if you want, then you can proceed to phase one. 50 out of 50 states, including New York City, are able to meet these requirements. Probably upstate New York is going to open sooner than New York City. Probably rural Michigan is going to open sooner than Detroit. Probably rural Louisiana is going to open sooner than New Orleans. We get that. But then there's a very specific achievement that you have to have in stage one before you can move to stage two, and I'm going to talk more about that next week because nobody's moving to phase two anytime soon. Wanted to just get this out here about phase one. All vulnerable individuals should continue to shelter in place. Members of households with vulnerable residents should be aware that by returning to work, they are not really safe and could carry that virus back home. So they too are encouraged to stay home. So phase one is really pretty conservative. Avoid socializing in groups of more than 10. And again, Sweden didn't have these restrictions at all. They have like more than 100 or something. Minimize non-essential travel. Okay, I'll stop for a second. Hey Rex, welcome. Glad you're here. Okay, good to see you. Just as I've said that not every county, not every city, not every state has the same COVID-19 issues, countries are different. So the one that's been the least affected, it's a major G10 country, actually G15, is Austria, followed by Germany and Denmark, and then it gets pretty bad, Switzerland, Sweden, but many, many countries. Far worse than Sweden. In fact, Italy, Spain, and Belgium are the worst. All right? The number of these cases is decreasing, but not at nearly the rate that those countries would want. And I have to mention that many of those weaker countries have socialized medicine. That could be contributing to it. So I have, and you guys know that I do these by reading from slides here that I've put together, and that I make these available to you on Friday. So I was in the beginning sending these out to you, but it was just too cumbersome because there's too much data. So what I have here is a chart that's showing the number of deaths from COVID-19 versus the 2018 flu. We don't have the 2019 flu data yet, okay, because that's 1920, over the winter. Texas, 318 to COVID-19 in the flu, 3,516. Florida, 571 to COVID, 3,091 to the flu. And yet New York, 10,800 from COVID, only 4,700 from the flu. So again, very different story depending on which state you're looking at, which is why I and many others are saying we really got to get open here. We've got to get open on a county-by-county basis. Some governors are facing pressure to reopen economy with protests in their states. You've seen that. And then you have President Trump admonishing the governor of Georgia, who is a Republican, that Trump believes the governor's opening too soon. And yet he's allowing the governor the right to do that. The reality is that nobody is being forced to open their business, and nobody is being forced to patronize businesses in any state. All right? You guys know that, I hope, right? Okay, it's being allowed to open is very different than having to open. Okay? Interesting to me was that Bill Barr, who's our Attorney General, warns of Justice Department intervention if state lockdown orders go too far. I live here in Illinois, and our governor just this afternoon extended our lockdown to May 31st. That's basically 2.5 months we're going to be locked down. And the retailers, the small businesses, I don't know how they're going to survive. Now, they're getting money from the government with these bailout programs. A lot of people that I know haven't received any money. So what worries you more? And this is the this is the next question I've got for you here. What's your worst timeline concern? Because some people are concerned that America will reopen too soon. Some are concerned that America will reopen too late. COVID-19 will return in the autumn. Maybe that's your concern. Or COVID-19 is a financial harm to me. So answer that one. I'm just going through this next slide here, but if you ask registered voters, so Democrats, Republicans, and Independents, what mostly are you concerned about? The Democrats, mostly it's concerned about opening too soon, and the Republicans, it's mostly concerned about not getting the country back to work, at least in the areas that are least or not affected at57% What do we got here? We got 29% America will reopen too soon, and 57% that it'll be open too late, and 13% that it will return in the autumn. There are the results, guys. I get all of those. I'm with those that America will reopen too late, and that's absolutely my concern. Thanks for filling that out. All right, let's keep going here. Trump has now stopped immigration for 60 days. And this is a very hot potato politically. I know that. 80% of those polled in USA Today, which is not a conservative paper by any means, supported this measure. So he's got a lot of support. I personally think it's a good idea. It probably should have happened sooner. It's difficult to remember your task was to drain the swamp when you're up to your you-know-what in alligators. That's an old Florida statement. Some of you Floridians may remember that one. But at a time when most Americans are discouraged from all non-essential travel within our borders, there are many that think it's responsible and fair to limit travel over those borders. You're free to weigh in on that in the comments here, and I will address it. I want to say again, if you haven't signed in, go ahead and sign in. Let me know you're here. And when you submit a question, do it here in this moderation or this chat moderation box. Several people were sending me questions last week in text, either on text or using Messenger's text function. I'm not reading that. I'm only reading online. I'm trying to follow 3 monitors here. I got my producer on one side and my compliance director here on the other. So a little bit of good news here. Hi, Chris. Glad you're with us. The U.S. Senate Tuesday approved the 484, call it $500 billion in additional relief. They're calling this 3.5, and literally just 2.5 hours ago, Nancy Pelosi in the House of Representatives with only 5 dissenting, 4 of whom were Republicans, and 1 was AOC from New York. Anyway, this is passed. The president will sign it tonight, and more money will go out to businesses. The PPP program, fully exhausted, $350 billion in funds. Folks, we have 26 million Americans out of work. 26 million Americans are out of work. We only have a population of 340. And let's face it, 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds probably aren't spending much time in an unemployment line. So of the working Americans, we're looking at an unemployment rate of 18 to 20%. This is like going back to 1929. Now, that took years to unwind, and I don't believe this is going to, but it's still pretty crazy. One of the more shocking things that I saw this week was that, and I wouldn't say it's shocking because it doesn't surprise me, President Donald Trump raised the prospect that China deliberately caused this outbreak with 40,000 American deaths. 40,000 American deaths. Dr. Deborah Birx, we kind of tease and call her Scarf Lady. She has these humongous scarves. Said any country that is aware that they are the first to expose the world of a pandemic has a moral obligation to be transparent, and China was not. So this political battle is going to break out. For sure. Hey, Lydia. Thanks for joining us from Boston. I think we've got people in 4 time zones now. Is LabCorp a good purchase? Let me get to that in the last section, Jimmy. Appreciate you asking. Why this matters. Republicans and Democrats are experiencing very different realities with the emergence of this virus. That shouldn't surprise anybody. Many conservatives live in states with fewer cases. I'm not one of them. I am a conservative, but I'm in a state that's got a ton of cases. Cook County is one of the worst in the country, not as bad as New York City. But many liberals live in big cities and experience more death and consume more ominous coverage, meaning they're listening to the liberal networks, which tend to be more ominous than the conservative outlets. So it almost matters. You've heard the phrase, it's a recession when your neighbor loses their job. It's a depression when you lose yours. Well, if you've had a family member die or someone you know very close that has died of COVID-19, you're probably more concerned about, as I got these results up here, that America's going to reopen too soon. But if you've lost a business or are close to that, you're probably concerned that we're going to open too late. And this is a really tough balancing act. It's a really tough balancing act. I had 2 really outstanding letters this week, and I want to stop before I go into the next section. 2 really good letters, and one especially that was super brave. But this is from Ed. CB3, I'm thinking again about how important politics are in our society today. Perhaps they've always been that way, and this plays into the section I just covered. Still quoting Ed. One's political bent is stronger than blood for sure. For instance, brothers killing each other in the Civil War and my sister-in-law or my niece throwing me under a bus or whatever to achieve their political victory discussion. And now I'm also realizing that it's stronger, meaning politics, than religion, sometimes even within our own faith. There are people at my church and others with far left social views that will quietly dislike me or even hate me for my political conservative views, especially because I support our president. My point is this, CB3, how amazingly powerful politics are. What is the root cause of this? First of all, thank you, Ed, for that question. That was very, very courageous to do that. So rather than me answering Ed, what I want to do is put up another poll. Okay? What causes the chasm in our politics in America? You guys are really smart people. We've got, last time I looked, 200 plus people watching. Weigh in on this, please. I know it may be a hotbed. It's unanimous. It's not unanimous. It's nobody's seeing who's voting for what. Okay, so don't be reticent to vote because you're going to be revealed. Your name will not be revealed. Economic inequities. Okay, that's one. Keep voting, folks. But Ed, I just want to thank you if you're listening. I really appreciate you submitting that question, and that you would think to have me answer that. So it means a lot to me. Thank you very much. All right, still get just one answer. Nobody else wants to answer it here? I'm looking at the questions. Hey, Larry and Connie from Batavia, welcome, guys. Thanks for being online. So easy to criticize, but how are you being part of the solution? Thank you, Jimmy. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Okay, now we got some answers. So what causes this chasm? 17% social injustices, 33%, down to 29 now. Nationalism versus globalism. That's basically Trump versus George Soros mindset. And then economic inequities, that seems to be the winner for tonight. So anyway, thank you guys. I hope that Ed is watching, and if not, I will make sure that he sees these answers and appreciate that. So before I head into this next section, guys, and I hope you're okay with this. You've been a great audience. This question blew me away, and I've been doing something like this with interacting with people, and I'm going to tell you a little bit more of that in just a second, for 12 years. But this question just blew me out of the water. This is from Tim. CB3, last week you said near the end of your program that we need to have faith that this COVID-19 crisis will pass. You sounded like you were expressing that God played a role in this human suffering. Did he? CB3, if you believe that, then do you also believe that God caused this pandemic? And if you believe that he did, then why are you doing these programs? I just kind of need to take that in to think that anybody would have the courage to write that to me. And I'm going to answer this because I think it's important. Some of you guys that are on here now have known me a long, long time. Some of you are brand new. We get brand new users every week, viewers. So let me answer the first part of this, Tim. I am 100% certain that God did not cause COVID-19. At the same time, I am 100% certain that God allowed COVID-19 to happen. Caused and allowed are two very different verbs. And if you were sitting right next to me, you'd probably say, well, why did he allow this? And candidly, that's a question that's above my pay grade and not really appropriate for what we're doing here tonight, but it's a valid question. And if you're interested, CB3 at CB3.com, or send me a private message if you don't want to use email. Just send me a PM, and I'll give you some feedback. There is definitely a book where you can get some of those answers. For those of you that don't know, when you get the copy of the slides that you get on Friday, and by the way, those of you that are tuning in for the first time, if you'll give us your email address, if you want the slides that I'm using with this tons of data, I spend probably 18 to 20 hours a week preparing these presentations. And the reason I do it is really simple. In 2008, when the world was coming apart at the seams, clients started calling the office and saying, man, you got to talk to us. Can you just tell us what's going on? And I realized, it'd be easier to handle this live in person, and questions, people could hear other people's concerns. So we were doing like 3 of these a month from 2008 and 2009. Well, the same thing happened here, and interestingly enough, I called the restaurants and the libraries and the park districts where we did these meetings 12 years ago, and they were all closed. So my media producer said, why don't you just go live? And this was on March 12th, Thursday, March 12th at 4 in the afternoon. He said, just go live and just tell people. And we had such good feedback from that I decided to just do this on a regular basis. And I want you to know that this is the reason we do this. I've been managing money for 30 years, and I know the emotional ups and downs that doing this causes myself, but also my clients. And the reason that I'm here is because, as I said early on, there are plenty of places where you can go and hear negative stories. You can hear that the market's falling apart, the world's falling apart, and society is crumbling. But you're not going to hear that message here, because I do have faith, and I do have a belief that we are here for a reason, to present these to you. And that's what I'm going to do. Perhaps God used this to bring me, quote, out of retirement so that I could offer these to you again, to bring you words of encouragement and facts and insights. And we're talking about actual portfolios that we're trading. It's not like this is proprietary information. But I just want you to know that if you've got questions and you don't feel comfortable putting them in the chat box, just send me a private message, and I'll be glad to answer it. My email address is cb3@cb3.com. Happy to, cover anything you'd like to ask, okay? So there it is. Let's move on to the next section now, and this is the U.S. economy. So what I have here, worst timeline, we've got this. Let's see my questions here. All right. U.S. economy. So NASDAQ, our biggest holding is the NASDAQ. We're down about 5.3%. The S&P down 13, the Dow's down 17, the Russell down 27. And my producer just said, you're running long, and I'm sorry. I had to answer those questions. Hang with me, guys. I'll get through this. A month ago today, this is April 23rd, a month ago today, the market hit the low. The S&P was down 34% from the all-time high in one of the most vicious bear markets in history. 1 month later, we have one of the greatest rallies going in history, although today fizzled a little bit. But overall, folks, it's still pretty amazing. And if you look at other historical massive 1 month rallies, if you look out 6 to 12 months, it looks pretty good for us. It really looks pretty good. The sharpness of this downturn and the sharpness of the upturn really has been unprecedented. You'll see this when you get the slides tomorrow. The graph I'm looking at is just astounding, that everything happened so fast, up and down. One of the most prevalent questions I get is, how can the market have come off of the lows of March 23rd, which I just mentioned, and now be in, quote, a bull market? And by the way, that just means it's 20% off the low price. It doesn't mean that we're at lifetime highs like we were on February 19th. It just means we're more than 20% off the bottom. How can the market be doing so well when the economy is doing so badly? And I want to be real careful to say this. I am not trying to be condescending with this. We don't trade the economy. We trade the markets. That's why it's called the stock market and not the economy market. It's not called the COVID market. It's not called the unemployment market. It's not called the retail sales market. The only thing that really matters is what stocks are doing. And if they respond in a way that seems counterintuitive, we can either sit there and scratch our heads and wonder why, or we can get on the train and do what they're doing. The market is 9 to 12 to 15, even 18 months into the future. The market fully discounted this catastrophe, I think, if not fully, almost fully, by March 23rd. And after that, there were no big sellers left. If there were more sellers left, we'd be going back down and testing that. And we might. I don't think it's going to happen. We'll see. So what happens with S&P 500 company earnings? Well, they're probably going to be down, understandably, right? Probably a drop of 15%, but that's not the worst in the last 60 years. The worst was 2009, 1958, 1991. We could head there. We'll know a lot more in the next few weeks, but so far, it's just not that bad. Initial jobless claims came out today, and for the second week in a row, they dropped. Now, there's still 26 million people out of work, and the unemployment claims were a little over 5 million, when normally it's about 200,000. But keep in mind, the previous weeks were in the 6 million range. So, again, we're just looking for a trajectory that's moving in the direction we want, which is better. Same thing with unemployment claims. I've got on my screen here some red states: Washington, Oregon, New York, Michigan, Georgia. But a whole lot of yellow and light orange states, meaning they haven't been affected nearly as badly. Investors are anxious to see states get reopened, and it looks like Monday or Wednesday, I guess, which is May 1st, several southern states, Texas, Tennessee, Georgia, and South Carolina will be the first ones out of the gate. There are 20-plus states, and since there are 50 states, that's almost half, that have not been hit hard at all in the perspective of what has happened in New York, okay? So what's going to be the outcome of this? Are we going to be so dependent on China as we've been during this whole crisis or been for the last 50 years? And the answer is no. First, we don't trust the Chinese. I don't trust the Chinese. I don't trust their data. I don't trust their ethical strain. Do I think that they caused this? I'm not going to offer that opinion until I have factual data. I will say that there are quite a few people, including our president, that have hypothesized on that without concrete data. I'm going to let them hypothesize. I'm not going to do it. But what I think is going to happen is you're going to see businesses repatriate. Word of the day, repatriate. Normally that word is associated with companies moving monies that are offshore and picking up that cash and moving it back here, like Apple. When they had the 2017 Tax Relief Act, they picked up the money and moved it back because they repatriated it from overseas back to the U.S. shores. You're going to see the same manufacturing happen. Japanese and U.S. companies are going to lead the way, leaving China and not putting us in this precarious position. Again, I know I'm running long, guys. Hang with me. I'm sorry. Consumer sentiment came out 2 days ago, better than expected. It's still negative. Of course it's negative, but not as bad as it was in 2012, in 2008, and 1978. So as long as we can hold this and then turn around, we're going to be in good shape. Auto sales bottomed out on March 29th and have slowly been moving back up as of last Sunday. Still negative numbers, but better than the previous. Okay, that's what we had to. That's what we want to see. All right, we got another poll here. So, if you received a refund check, what'd you do with it? Put it in savings? Give it to charity, everyday expenses, or pay down debt? While you guys are filling this out, I'm going to answer some questions. Thanks for the smart, Jimmy. Only in heaven will there be no more pain, sorrow, or tears. Yeah, that's worth a love on that one. It is. Black & Decker has, help me out, Tom, has what? I'd like to know if you're still there. Black & Decker has something. Am I missing anybody here? Looking, Andre invested, good, okay. So what do we got here? We got savings 33%, 13% charity, everyday expenses 63%. So it might interest you to know that the actual stat from UBS Research is that well over 35% added it to savings. I think that's a positive. They didn't need it for everyday expenses. That was still 28%. Pay down debt, 21%. But that they were able, the majority of Americans are able to put that in savings means that maybe the cash flow crunch is not quite as imminent as some of the data was saying it was. Now, you guys probably have been hearing about crude oil. I think I need to address this. So we get the poll done here. Everybody's done there. There's your results. Okay. Everyday expenses for most everybody here. Only reason I'm mentioning crude oil is because a really wacky thing happened, and that's that if you bought May crude oil on Monday for $18 a barrel and held it till the end of the day, you actually had to pay someone $37 to take it from you. It traded negative for the first time in history. Why is this important? Because you're going to see freak things like this in the news. Does that mean that the crude oil industry is falling apart? No, it's going through a tough time. But the media loves these kinds of stories because it's a freak. It's like going to the freak show. The reason that you go is you see things you don't see in regular life. Anytime you have a pandemic of this nature that is this dramatic, there's going to be some fallout, and one of them is in crude oil. There are, and I'm looking at the chart right now, 30 to 35 huge barges off the coast of California, Baja California, which is Mexico, and all around the Gulf of Mexico, holding crude oil because there's no place to put it in Cushing, Oklahoma, which is where it all deposits. All right? We have a huge surplus of crude oil. Huge surplus. Huge surplus. Black & Decker moved their manufacturing out of China to Texas. Yay, there you go. Thanks, buddy. That gets a love. I love seeing these repatriations. I am a nationalist. I'll plead guilty. It's not that I wish ill on other countries. I don't even wish ill on China. I just don't want countries ripping us off or causing a pandemic and not being forthright about it. The details are just emerging, folks. I'll keep you up to date on them every Thursday, I promise. Okay, so one of the things that I saw that was encouraging to me was this new company, and I don't know anything about this, but this King Clean, keeping your employees and customers safe, disinfection applications for COVID-19, have us come in, inspect your facilities, teach your employees how to, clean things up. I really don't want to mention the name or give you a URL because, again, I'm not affiliated with them, but I'm starting to see American ingenuity with specificity looking at the business market and saying, hey, we got a problem, we got a solution. You're seeing industries do this, okay? I mentioned last week that Duquesne, a manufacturer here in Chicago, is manufacturing masks. Their Czech Republic office outfitted pretty much the whole country with N95 masks. And Duquesne is working with GE and 3M and others, but you're seeing, they say that necessity is the mother of invention. Well, we've got plenty of necessity. We were definitely walloped up against the head to the same dramatic amount that we were on December 7th, 1941. This is a modern day Pearl Harbor, and obviously even a bigger event than that because it's been nationwide and indeed worldwide. But when I see this kind of innovation, I really think that that's great, and I'll keep bringing that to you. Good stories, okay? So the bear market that was in place when we started this series, and 3 weeks into it, it officially ended. Stocks normally go up during earnings season, and I didn't do a whole lot of earnings tonight because I had so much other information, but earnings season is really not looking that bad. It's really not. I'll have more specific data next week. But as of today, the market to me, and I said this earlier, but I just want to say it again on camera, the market is looking and behaving as if most, if not all, of the bad news was priced in by March 23rd. That's the low of the market. March 23rd, 2191 in the S&P 500. I don't think we revisit those lows. I said that earlier. I may be wrong, but that's what I think. All right, I'm going to pause here before going into CB3 investments. Thanks, Jimmy, for the kind words. Let's see. What else do I have here? Let's do a new poll. My view on the markets: I'm invested with some cash. 2, I'm maybe 50% invested. 3, I'm fully invested. 4, my cash and I are in a cave. Again, these are anonymous answers, so if you want to check that, it's okay. And while you're doing that, I want to make sure I haven't missed anything. I think I've responded to everybody here. All right, what else do we got? Pastor Rick Warren reminded us this is not heaven. No kidding. Except for Thursday nights with CB3 Live. Oh, guys, so glad you're here. There's just so much negativity out there. Doesn't it just bug you? I mean, it's changing America. 9/11 changed America. 1987, the stock market crash changed America. Ebola changed America. AIDS changed America. If you live in California, earthquakes can change America really fast. But if we don't look for the good, then we just, fear just overcomes us. We can't do that. Can't do that. 2650, 2470, I don't see it, Chris. Chris is talking about support levels in the S&P. Those are levels back to 2016. I think those hold. I can't imagine why those would not, but I don't think we're going back to test the March 23rd low. I just don't see it. My opinion. Okay, what do I have here? 33% I'm invested with some cash. 11% maybe. I'm 50% invested. I'm fully invested 33%, and my cash and I are in a cave. Okay, good. There are the results. All right, so let me just talk about what we're doing here on the investing front. So some of you guys are clients. Some of you are not. That's fine. We're happy to have you here. I started doing these for clients years ago, and when I first did this, episode 1, I just made it open to my clients, but then some people watched it and said, hey, make this available, and now we're like over 200 people or something. So we bought Chipotle, and here, this is the old Peter Lynch thing. Peter Lynch, famous guy with Fidelity Investments, managed Magellan, used to say, you like coffee? You like Dunkin' Donuts coffee? Then buy Dunkin' Donuts. If it's good coffee, probably other people think that too. While we didn't want to go out because my wife and I are a little bit older, we ordered in with Chipotle, and it was so easy. They have an easy app. I'm not getting paid to endorse Chipotle at all. But we bought it, and we've owned it before. We went away from it. We thought they were having some struggles, but their delivery service is so good. And earnings came out, and we got a nice, 13% bump on that. So we're real happy. Not all of ours are winners. You're going to see that. Picked up BG Foods, 23% earnings surprise, and their yield is still near double digits. They're a holding company for branded foods. They make pickles and relish and condiments and stuff like that. Pretty basic stuff. With more people eating at home, it seemed a pretty wise thing to do. So I skipped ahead here. Let me go back. Okay. Next pickup, and this one hasn't really proven great just yet, but PetMed. So they sell pet medications and pet healthcare products. They've been one of the strongest performers during the collapse of the market, and I didn't see this, frankly, until late March. So we'd already started in the recovery. But similar to how people are stocking up with Costco and grocery stores, pet owners are stockpiling food and health products. And I think probably pets is viewed as a beneficiary of pet owners staying home. You've heard the joke about the dogs, saying to each other, why is this person here? And why, especially cats, right? Why is my servant, the cat says, here all the time? Well, we think it's a pretty good long-term play for PetMed. And then Lululemon. Now this could be viewed as a little bit risky. And we bought this, and I think it's up a little bit, but this is just over the last week or so since I was on with you. I think that athletic retailers are going to benefit as consumers continue to exercise at home. I'm one of those people. I work with my trainer on a video feed, and it keeps me from getting any fatter than I already am. I joked last time that what I really need to do is practice social distancing from my refrigerator. But I think that they're offering online workout classes. That's pretty smart. Again, responding to a situation and not just sitting around. I'm behind these companies that are saying, okay, we got a problem. They're not going to come into the stores. Maybe we can offer an online class. And I think that eventually when people come back, then that'll lead to higher online sales and maybe foot traffic as well. Anyway, we're in Lululemon. Late to the game on Walmart. We've owned it many times when the market was going straight up because they're a staple. They really were underperforming. But we got back in. Year over year growth is 20%, really strong. And I think that Walmart is uniquely positioned to be able to compete with Amazon in this seismic shift to online retail as the world continues to deal with COVID-19. I just think it's a good play. It's a good long-term hold. So, and finally, Zoom, Jimmy says. So Zoom, we got a little while ago, and I was late on this too, but we still got a huge move today, 12.3%. And this is a long-term hold. I mean, Zoom, I read an interview with the CEO when he was a $10 million company. They're now $200 million in annual sales. I mean, it's crazy. As you said, we had no intention of becoming a household name, and they have been. So the next holding, Work, I mentioned these, I think, in episode 5, and pick this one up. This one hasn't done anything yet, but we like Work, which is Slack Technologies, because it interfaces with collaborative teams, so it's a good partner product. with Zoom. They had a disappointing IPO, and then they had a great start in the crisis, and then we bought it, and it slumped again. So, but again, we like it as a long-term hold. So next is new trade ideas. I think I'm going to get this done in maybe about 7 minutes late. Sorry about this, guys. So Tom, thank you, Tom, for the comment. All right, so Netflix, still waiting on Netflix, and it's just as well. Last time I mentioned that they had, 15.8 million new subscribers. That's now up to, their total subscriber nationwide or worldwide, is about 185 million. Just really looking for a pullback here. I don't like overpaying for anything, so it's still on my radar. That'll be for CG. Gilead. Well, Gilead, I was waiting for a pullback, and it got it. It got 5% hit today on that news. But I'm thinking there's more in this, so I may look at it tomorrow or Monday. I'll let you know next week. But people are saying, well, it's a company that just failed, right? They just failed on this thing. Well, first of all, I don't know that they failed. The World Health Organization, it doesn't help their narrative to say that Gilead's coming up with something, okay? And just because a company's failed once or twice doesn't mean that they're not on track for something. I would have bought stock in the Wright brothers. And let's face it took them 4 tries, right? Okay. We bought Abbott, we bought Johnson. I know that's basically should have been in the previous section, but we've just done great on both Abbott and Johnson. Tiny bit late, but still, like up 15% in each one. We're really, really pleased with that. So Gilead on the radar, Disney still on the radar. When I first started saying Disney was on the radar, they had about 50 million subscribers. Remember, they're way behind Netflix, although they have been ramping up much faster. Now up to 55 million, and that's just 2 episodes ago, so 5 million signups in 2 weeks. That's pretty amazing. But furloughing 77,000 employees, union and non-union, nearly tripling the unemployment rate in Orlando. Now, when you have one company that makes that big an impact, there's obviously some social public relations fallout from that too. So I'm really just waiting to see if this shakes out. I think it was episode 4, but I hypothesized that Disney may be looking at placing more emphasis on their revenue model from recurring revenue, in other words, from their movies, than their live, which the problem with their live exhibits is you've got disease, you've got weather, you got all kinds of stuff. So summarizing, I used the word fear earlier. Fear is the polio of the soul, which prevents our walking by faith. And you either have faith in God or you have faith in the markets or faith in something. If you don't, you're a pretty depressed person. But fear is the polio of the soul, which prevents our walking by faith. Every time you confront something that's painful, you're at a potential important juncture in your life. You can choose a healthy and painful truth or an unhealthy but comfortable delusion. I choose the former. That's from Ray Dalio, the biggest hedge fund runner in America. It's my deeply held belief that we will not only survive this pandemic, but we will emerge a stronger nation. And yes, I have faith in that. And I so appreciate each of you tuning here on these Thursday night shows. If you have something that you'd like to tell me that you weren't comfortable putting in the chat box here, just give me a private message. If you're not on our mailing list, just shoot us your email on the private message or something, and I'll get you the slides. Every Friday, we send out the slides to those who have signed up with us. We're not pitching you. I think I've said many times, guys, I'm here to do this. I sold a business, and a lot of people would think for a pretty decent amount 6.5 years ago. I'm doing these because I want to help. I want to give back. So it'd be nice if you like what you're hearing, just hit that like button or even hit the love button, and tell your friends and family, okay? Let me just make sure, healthcare issues, Quest, Gilead, Abbott. So I mentioned Gilead, I mentioned Abbott. I'll cover Quest next week. Have not been looking at that. Healthcare ideas, answered that. Thanks for the illustration comment, Jimmy. Anybody else, if you've got a question, send it now because I think we're wrapping up. I've run a little bit long, guys. I'll do my best. So let me give you one last poll. Next week, I want more on COVID-19, the economic recovery, specific stocks, which I just did here at the end, or just keep the variety mix that I've been doing. We have 4 areas while you're filling this out. We have 4 areas. We do Corona America. We do the U.S. economy, we do our holdings, and then we talk about trade ideas that we're looking at for portfolios. And again, this is for our current clients, but if you're just tuning in and you just want to hear how we're buying, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You do not have to be a client. So keep the variety mix is 100%. Any dissenters? Anybody else? We got more votes here, and they're all keep the variety mix. Well, guys, I'm going to call it at that. I don't see any more semi-concentration. Let's see. Does semi-concentration being I'm buying a lot of 18-wheelers? Okay, just a little humor there. Chris, there are 11 sectors. Chris is a money manager. And we're only invested in 6 of the sectors right now. So we never have a balance of a stock in each, like we don't have any energy. We don't have any materials. Okay? We don't. So thank you, Andre. Thank you, Jimmy. I can talk a little bit more about allocation next week. You know, I could do that. So it looks like keep the variety mix on specific stocks. Okay, so less on the economy and COVID. Okay, there are your results. Guys, I'm determined I'm going to end this in less than an hour, and we're just about there. You know, be safe, stay optimistic, stay upbeat. Shoot me a PM if you got questions during the next week. I will be back here a week from tonight on CB3 Live, Episode 8, and I hope you're here with us. Until then, God bless, stay safe.